Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah. Inna alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We're continuing with the topic of ghusl, or taking a bath in Islam. Yesterday we talked about the situations in which a bath is needed. Bottom line, whenever you find yourself sexually defiled as a result of ejaculation, or as a result of a woman and her husband's private parts touching each other, then you have to take a ghusl. A ghusl is a complete bath which requires immersing yourself in water from head to toe, covering every part of your body completely in water. Okay, and also after a woman ends her menses, or after her bleeding ends from childbirth. Now today we're going to speak about the instances in which ghusl is not needed, but it's recommended. And you may be surprised at some of the instances here. Okay? And again, when we talk about instances or situations in which it's recommended to take a ghusl, that means if you did take the ghusl, then you will receive a reward for it. But again, if you don't take the ghusl, then you're not going to be punished. And the first case is before the Friday prayer. How many of you were told that it's an obligation to take a bath on Friday? Guess what? It's not an obligation. It's a highly recommended sunnah, but it is not an obligation. That means if you do not take a bath on Friday, Allah is not going to punish you. But again, it comes down to understanding the meaning of these hadiths, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did say ghusl on Friday is obligatory upon every adult, as is using a toothbrush and applying perfume. But when he said obligatory, it meant that it was highly recommended. It did not mean that if you don't do it, you're going to hell. And where's my proof? Well, because we have the following hadith from Ibn Umar. He tells us that one day his father, Umar, was standing and delivering the khutbah for the Friday prayer when Uthman, you guys know who Uthman is. Uthman was one of the eminent companions. He came into the mosque. Umar looked at Uthman and he said, "What time is it, Uthman?" In other words, why are you late? You're late for the khutbah. And Uthman said, "I was busy and I could not return on time. But when I heard the call for the prayer, I only had time to make wudu, so I made wudu and then came directly to the mosque." Umar then said to Uthman, "Don't you remember what the Prophet said about taking a ghusl?" Uthman said yes. But guess what? Umar then continued on with his khutbah. He did not order Uthman to leave to take a ghusl. So that shows that if something prevents you, something prevents you from taking a bath before coming to Juma, then you can come without the bath. Everybody understand that? There's the evidence. But if there's nothing preventing you, say for example, you're at home, you're not busy at work, you got time, then you should take a bath and then go to the mosque. Also, guys, let me emphasize this. Attending the Juma prayer is an obligation for every man who is able to. In fact, a man should not miss more than 3 Juma prayers you know, in a row. So again, which is more important, taking a bath or attending the Juma prayer? Of course, attending the Juma prayer is. So, but if something is preventing you, what are you going to do? Miss the prayer because you couldn't take a bath? No, the prayer is more important. So, you brothers in that case can get to the prayer without the bath. Is that clear? And that's what happened in this case with Uthman. Uthman was not able, he didn't have time to take the baths. What was he going to do? Miss the khutbah? No, he hurried up and came to the mosque for the khutbah. So again, taking a bath before the Friday prayer is a highly recommended sunnah, but it is not an obligation. If something is standing in the way of you doing it, you don't have the time, then go to the mosque and Allah is not going to punish you for not having the bath. And also, guys, more proof that is highly recommended and not obligatory is the following hadith. The Prophet said, whoever makes the wudu and perfects it and then goes to the Friday prayer and listens attentively will have forgiveness from that Friday to the next and an additional 3 days. Now, El-Kartubi, who was one of the scholars of Hadith, he said this Hadith shows that Ghusl is preferred but not obligatory. The mention of wudu and the reward and acceptability points to the fact that the wudu alone is sufficient. So this Hadith here is the proof that simply making the wudu is all the brother has to do, which is what Uthman did. Uthman simply made wudu and went to the mosque. Also, Ibn Hajar, who was another one of the scholars of Hadith, he says that Hadith there is the strongest evidence that Ghusl is not obligatory. But again, if other people will be harmed by your smell, or something like that, then Ghusl becomes obligatory. Uthman did not smell. He made ablution and came to the mosque. He was not stinky or any of that. Okay, if you do come to the mosque with a bad odor on you, you didn't have time to take a ghusl, it may detract some of your reward. Because remember, the angels and the believers do not like to smell funk. So it can take away from some of your reward. But again, the bottom line, guys, ghusl before the Juma prayer is not obligatory if you were in a situation where you were unable to take one first. And again, that's the key. It must be a situation like Uthman had where you were unable to, you didn't have the time to take it before getting to the mosque. And that should all be self-explanatory. And again, a lot of people ask, well, what is the time for taking a bath for Friday? Well, the time for the Friday ghusl is between Fajr and the time of the prayer. Any time between Fajr and the time of the prayer. In fact, it's best to do it before you leave for the mosque. And if you do it before you leave for the mosque and lose your wudu, after that, it's sufficient to just renew your wudu. You don't have to take a ghusl. We have the hadith whereas another person tells us, I heard Ahmed being asked if a person performed ghusl and then lost it, would the regular wudu be sufficient? And he said yes. And I have heard nothing, and I have not heard anything about that preferable to the hadith of Ibn Abzi. And he was referring to the hadith by Ibn Abzi, which has a very sahih chain. Whereas he performed ghusl for Friday prayer, and afterwards he broke his wudu. After that, he just simply made wudu, and he did not repeat his ghusl. Okay, so that's the proof of that. Also, the time for the ghusl ends at the time of the prayer. So you have any time between Fajr and the time of the Friday prayer to take your ghusl. If a person performs the ghusl after the prayer, then that's not the ghusl of the Friday prayer. So if you want the reward that the Prophet tells us that a person gets by from taking a bath before going to the Friday prayer. You have to take that bath before the Friday prayer. If you take it afterwards, it doesn't count. And again, that's based on the proof where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, before you come to the Friday prayer, you should perform ghusl. When one of you wants to come to the Friday prayer, you should perform ghusl. So again, the reward of taking a bath on Friday, because you hear all those hadiths about the reward of taking a bath on Friday. You will only get that reward if you take the bath before the Friday prayers. If you take the bath after the Friday prayer, you don't get that reward. Also, another time or another instance in which the ghusl is not obligatory but highly recommended is the Eid prayer. The Eid prayer. The Eid prayer. We are strongly encouraged to take a bath before we go to the Eid prayer. But guess what, guys? There is no authentic hadith that states that we have to do that. Again, what did Allah say? Allah said that the ghusl is only required if you're sexually defiled. Okay? Or if it's menses or childbirth bleeding. Those are the instances in which ghusl is required. And again, the hadiths do not contradict the Quran. So that's why you're not going to find any hadith saying that the ghusl before the Eid prayer or before the Friday prayer is a must or else. Okay? Any hadith that anybody does give you about taking a bath before the Eid prayer is not authentic. They're weak hadiths. Okay? So just to make a note of that. But again, if you want the reward, there's a lot of hadiths that speak about the reward of taking a bath because again, guys, Allah loves cleanliness. Cleanliness brings you closer to Allah. So we should take a ghusl as often as possible. In fact, we recommend taking a ghusl once a day. You should take a ghusl at least once every 24 hours to keep yourself clean. But is there a hadith that says that? No. Common sense should tell you. Also, and this is an answer for Sister Izdahar. Yeah, I think, no, Sister Ifti. Sister Ifti asked about this. Ghusl for washing a dead body is not obligatory. It's not obligatory, but it's something that is recommended. The Prophet said, whoever has washed a body must perform ghusl, and whoever carried him must perform a wudu. But it's not an obligation because guess what? This hadith has a lot of criticisms in it. For example, some of the scholars of hadith say that that this hadith is not classified as authentic. Some of the scholars say that some parts may be authentic, but some of the people that transmitted it are questionable. Some say the chains of this hadith are stronger than a number of chains of the hadith that the jurists argue by. So there's different criticisms of this hadith. The order in the hadith implies preference based on what's been said by Umar, who said, we used to wash the dead. Some of us would perform ghusl and some would not. So there it is. So this is the hadith, guys, that lets it be known that if you want to take a bath, you can, but it's not obligatory. Umar said we used to wash the dead and some of us would make a bath and some of us would not. Also, we have the other authentic hadith. Remember what happened with Uthman. When Uthman was murdered, it was his wife who washed his body. And when she went to wash her body, excuse me, not Uthman, Abu Bakr. When Abu Bakr died, he wasn't murdered. I was thinking of another. That's another hadith too, guys. What happened with Uthman? His wife also. his wife washed his body too, and she asked the same thing too. But what I have here is the hadith of Asma bint Umaysh. She washed the body of Abu Bakr. And when she went to wash his body, she asked if there were any companions present who migrated from Mecca, because they were the ones who understood the religion the best. And she asked them, she said, "This is a cold day and I am fasting. Do I have to take a bath before I wash his body?" And they said no. So there's the evidence, Sister Ifti. And since a person doesn't have to take a bath, that means you don't have to be in a state of purity to wash a deceased body either. So if a woman was on her period, there's nothing that says she cannot do it. Okay? All right. What about the ghusl for Hajj? Guess what, guys? This is highly recommended, but it's not obligatory either. It's preferred to take a bath, but it's not obligatory. Zayd ibn Thabit tells us that he saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he intended to perform the Hajj, take a bath. But did the Prophet say that we have to do it? No. Remember, there's a difference between saying that I should do something and then telling me that I'm going to go to hell if I don't. When we say that you should do it, and if you don't do it, you're going to be punished, what we're saying is, if I don't do it, I'm going to hell. Be careful of that, guys. There's a difference between being recommended and being an obligation. Also, another recommendation is to take a bath when you enter Mecca. This is not obligatory, but it's something that we recommend, because Ibn Umar, when Ibn Umar went to Mecca, he would spend the night in Tawa and he would enter Mecca during the day. All of the scholars say it's preferred to take a bath when you enter Mecca, but one does not have to do it. Simply making wudu is sufficient. So again, we have to be careful telling people what they must do and what they should do. Finally, taking a bath at Mount Arafat. This is also not obligatory. It's highly recommended. When you make Hajj, it's highly recommended, but you may not be able to take a ghusl. Well, guess what? Your Hajj is still accepted. So thus, guys, again, we have to be very, very, very careful telling people that we're going to go to hell if we don't do something, because that's basically what we're saying. Whenever you tell a person that they have to do something, what you're really telling them is, if they don't do it, they're going to hell. So because I was unable to take a bath before I came to the Jummah prayer, you're telling me I'm going to hell? Because I was unable to take a bath before Mount Arafat, I'm going to hell? Because I was unable to get off the plane and take a bath before I flew into Mecca, I'm going to hell? We have to be careful. Remember, what are the instances in which bathing is obligatory? It's if you find yourself sexually defiled as a result of ejaculation, or the touching of the two private parts to one another, or a woman ending her menses, or a woman ending her bleeding from having a baby. Other than that, it's recommended. And of course, guys, we encourage you to take a bath as often as possible. Most of us live in countries that have running water. All we have to do is turn the shower on and get in it. Please do so. Take a bath at least once a day if you can, because it'll keep you clean, and cleanliness brings you closer to godliness, okay? And tomorrow what we're going to do is talk about how the ghusl is actually performed, because this is another area where the Muslims are messed up. They think they have to follow the same ritual, or if they don't, they're going to hell. Is that true? We'll talk about that tomorrow. So we'll stop right here for today. Sunnahfollowers, protectors of the Sunnah, Sunnahfollowers.